start. Let me start. Today we are going to have a case discussion on incision hernia. To me, today will be Professor Utpal De, who is Professor of Surgery at NRS Medical College. And we have also Dr. Sugar Maiti and might be Dr. Acharya and Dr. Basak will also join. So Shovana is from PLS. She will be presenting the case. Shovana, please start.
I've joined Professor Saha.
Yeah, Dr. Acharya is there.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah.
I'll be presenting a case on incisional hernia. I'm the general surgery resident from Peerless Hospital. Next slide. My patient, Mrs. D, a 57-year-old lady, presented to our hospital with chief complaints of pain in upper central abdomen for 1 month and swelling in upper central abdomen for 1 year. Next slide. History of presenting illness. Mrs. D, a 57-year-old lady, a music teacher by profession, was apparently well 1 year ago when she noticed a lump in upper central abdomen. It has gradually increased in size. It appears on straining, cuffing, lifting heavy weights, and it disappeared on lying down. Since 1 month, she noticed that the lump does not disappear in lying down position also. There is no history of trauma at the site of the lump, and it is not associated with any vomiting or non-passage of stool or flatus. The swelling was associated with pain for last 1 month. It was acute in onset, intermittent, moderate intensity, aggravated by increase in size of swelling, cuffing, and it was relieved on taking rest, and also it was associated with reduction in size of swelling. Next slide. There is no history of chronic cough, no difficulty in micturition. There is no swelling in any other side noticed by the patient. There is no complaint of discomfort in the chest, breathlessness, no difficulty in walking or sitting, no complaint of loss of consciousness, burning sensation during urination, or vaginal discharge. Next slide. Past history. Patient has a past history of exploratory laparotomy 20 years back, which was done in emergency, possibly for perforated gallbladder. She developed wound infection in post-operative period, which was treated with medication and continuous dressing. She does not remember using any abdominal belt. No further surgery was required at that time. The treatment papers are not available with the patient. She has 2 children who were born through normal vaginal delivery with no complications during the hospital stay. There is no past history of any other operation. Next slide. Personal history. She has a history of chronic constipation for which she takes laxatives intermittently. There is no history of alcohol intake, no addiction to tobacco or related products. There is no history of excessive blood loss during menstruation. There is no history of feeling excessively tired or dizziness after or during working. There is no history of inadequate intake or malnourishment. There is no known comorbidity like diabetes or hypertension. She is non-vegetarian by dietary habit. She has normal bladder movements. There is no history of any allergy, and there is no disturbance in sleep habits. Next slide. Family history. Both parents are deceased. There is no significant medical history elicited. She is married with 2 children, 27 and 32 years old. Next slide. Next slide. Summary. Mrs. D, a 57-year-old lady, a music teacher by profession, was apparently well 1 year ago when she noticed a lump in the upper central abdomen, which has gradually increased in size and become irreducible since past 1 month. Earlier, it used to appear on straining, cuffing, lifting heavy weight, and used to disappear on lying down. There is no history of trauma at the site of the lump. It is not associated with any vomiting or non-passage of stool or flatus. The swelling was associated with pain for past 1 month. It was acute in onset, intermittent, moderate intensity, aggravated by increase in size of swelling, cuffing, relieved on taking rest, and also with reduction in size of swelling. Significant past history of emergency exploratory laparotomy 20 years back, which was associated with wound infection, which was managed conservatively. She also suffers from chronic constipation, for which she takes laxatives intermittently. Next slide.
Okay, wait.
Okay, should I proceed?
Wait.
Yeah, wait. I have some questions regarding means your history. Now,
Yes,
from the history, you said that the patient had a lump which she noticed in the upper central abdomen, right?
Yes,
That is
sir.
what you said. And then you said that it was associated with pain, which was acute
Yes.
in onset, intermittent, moderate intensity. That is how you characterize the pain. Now, how do you correlate this pain with this lump? Means, what do you mean to say by saying the characteristic of pain that you have described? How do you associate it with the lump?
Sir, at times the loop of bowel or the omentum, whatever was the contents, got stuck in the after coming out of the abdomen, and because of that she experienced intermittent episodes of pain. And then once it reduced, or once she rested, then once the contents got reduced,
Okay, I got
she
it. I got it. Now, the thing is that what I want to know is, does it give any idea about the size of the defect from what you have said?
Sir, it must be a small defect.
Good, very good. So usually when the defect in an incisional hernia, when the defect is small, it is associated with these symptoms, right? But when the defect is large, then we usually don't have these kind of symptoms. Okay, so
Yes.
that is one thing. Now the second thing, in the past history, you mentioned about exploratory laparotomy, right? But did you mention about the incision?
Sir, it was a midline incision extending from. Sir, I
So-
have mentioned it in inspection.
Okay, so that is means when you are saying exploratory laparotomy, means I think the patient should be able to say, means I had a incision which was placed in the upper abdomen, means whether it was a vertical or a transverse incision. I think some hint about that should be made in the history. The third
Okay.
thing is, in the medical, you told us about she had no significant medical history. What medical history did you ask for?
Sir, if she had any symptoms which were related to asthma, or any symptoms which could cause chronic cough, COPD, or she had any symptoms which any
Anything
urinary
else?
symptoms.
Anything else?
And sir, malnourishment from for earlier, and then symptoms for anemia, because that would lead to poor wound healing, and that can cause
More important than
development
these, what you have said?
Thyroid.
Thyroid. Means before thyroid, diabetes, has it got any relation?
Yes, sir, that is also
So you
contributory
said
to
about
poor
wound infection following laparotomy, isn't it? So
Yes,
you should
yes,
have
sir.
asked about whether the patient is suffering from diabetes mellitus. I did not find any questions regarding that from your history. Okay, otherwise I feel the history is means quite okay.
Come to personal history slide. Come to personal history slide. Slide of personal history. Go back, Milind. Slide of personal history.
Sir, I feel you are not audible properly.
So you are not audible, sir.
Oh, okay. I'm telling that go to the slide on personal history.
Yes, sir.
You see, Shobana,
Yes, sir.
you have mentioned many things in personal history, but I don't like you studied constipation in personal history, because
Okay,
that
sir.
symptom you have described in history of present illness, and in
Yes.
personal history there are some chronology of writing. You start with her marital status, her spouse, her dietary habits, sleep,
Okay, sir.
any chronic staining factors. Okay, so make a methodical presentation.
Okay,
So
sir.
you mentioned so many things, but it's all haphazard. Next
Yes,
question
sir.
is from the history. We
Yes,
know
sir.
that a surgery in the past may lead to hernia.
Yes, sir.
How do you explain in this patient that she has got a history of surgery 20 years back, and now she is
Yes.
having a hernia? Do you think that it is directly related to the hernia and the infection 20 years back, or something else is important here?
Sir, there may have been a lump which may be concealed below the skin, and she may not have noticed it. And once the lump increased in size, then she noticed
Okay,
the
that is one
lump.
possibility, that she has not noticed it. That is one. That maybe that it is there for a long time, but assume that it was not there, and she is right in saying
Okay,
that
sir.
she noticed the lump in 1 year back. So what is the
Yes,
explanation?
sir.
How it differs from a lump or a swelling developing immediately, maybe within 6 months or 3 months following surgery, and their lump something is coming in 20 years down the line?
Sir, in this, the precipitating factor may actually be your chronic constipation rather than the incision itself.
Yes, but incision, you try to understand, incision area has healed with scarring, so that is a
Yes, sir.
potential weak area, and
Yes, sir.
subsequent staining factors, aging,
Yes.
everything might contribute to the hernia. So can you tell us
Okay, sir.
what are the important? Okay, I can discuss later on. Okay, proceed with the
Another
examination.
thing I just want to add,
Yeah.
see, in this incisional hernia, when you say that it's occurred 20 years back, actually, whole of this incisional hernia is somewhat related to physics. So Laplace's law actually applies. So a defect which might have been small over the period of time, with all those things that you have mentioned, which causes increased intra-abdominal pressure,
Yes, sir.
the defect which was smaller before might have slowly and slowly increased in size, and that is why you could have noticed that lump after so many years. So that is also one thing which you should keep in mind, apart from what Dr. Saha said. So
Yes,
this
sir.
is also important.
Okay, sir.
Okay, I think you can move on to the examination part now.
Okay, sir. General examination. Patient was examined in a well-lit room after taking informed consent and in the presence of a female attendant. She was conscious, oriented to time, place, and person. She is well-built and facies was normal. Decubitors of choice. BMI was 23. Hydration status, no dehydration. There was no pallor, icterus, clubbing, or edema. No, neck veins were not engorged. Pain was rated by patient as 5 on a visual analog scale. Next slide. Pulse rate was 84 per minute in right arm radial artery. Temperature, she was afebrile. Respiratory rate 14 breaths per minute. BP was 130 by 70. Right arm in supine position. There were no palpable supraclavicular lymph nodes. Next slide. On examination of abdomen. On inspection, the abdomen was normal in shape. The swelling in epigastric region was approximately 2 into 2 centimeter in size in standing position with no change on lying down. Umbilicus was distorted and shifted to the left. It was inverted. There was no sinus or fistula. There is no dilated vein seen around the umbilicus. A scar of previous operation was seen running from the xiphisternum to the pubic symphysis. All quadrants seemed to be moving equally with respiration. There was no visible peristalsis and the swelling was non-pulsatile. On head raising test, the swelling became more prominent and the cuff impulse test was negative. The hernial sites were free and there was no other swelling in abdomen. The external genitalia was normal. Next slide. On palpation, the inspectory findings were confirmed. There was no local rise of temperature in the swelling. The swelling did not move with respiration. There was no tenderness elicited, and there was a soft feeling over the swelling. The swelling was non-tender in the epigastrium, overlying the previous scar, 2 into 2 centimeter in size, having a smooth surface. It was oval in shape with well-defined margins, and it cannot be reduced manually in lying down position. There was no movement with respiration and no transmitted pulsation. On head raising test, the swelling became more prominent and the cuff impulse test was negative. Rest of the abdomen was soft, non-tender and doughy. Next. On percussion, dull note was elicited over the lump. The rest of the abdomen was resonant. There is no free fluid in the abdomen. On auscultation, bowel sounds were heard equally in all the quadrants. No adventitious sounds were heard. On digital rectal examination and pervaginal examination, the rectal tone and mucosa was normal. And on pervaginal examination, there was no growth felt and the parametrium was free. Next. CNS, no abnormality detected. GCS was 15 by 15. CVS, S1, S2 heard, no adventitious sound. Respiratory system, bilateral vesicular breath sounds were heard, no adventitious sounds were heard. Spine, no abnormality detected. Next slide. Summary. Mrs. D, a 57-year-old lady, a music teacher by profession, was apparently well 1 year ago when she noticed a lump in the upper central abdomen, which has gradually increased in size and become irreducible since past 1 month. Earlier, it used to appear on straining, cuffing, lifting heavy weight, and it used to disappear on lying down. There is no history of trauma at the site of the lump. It is not associated with any vomiting or non-passage of stool or flatus. The swelling was associated with pain for past 1 month. It was acute in onset, intermittent, moderate in intensity, aggravated by increase in size of swelling, coughing, and relieved on taking rest, and also with reduction in size of swelling. Significant past history of emergency exploratory laparotomy 20 years back, which was associated with wound infection, was managed conservatively. She also suffers from chronic constipation, for which she takes laxatives intermittently. Next slide. Next slide. On examination, non-tender oval swelling of 2 into 2 centimeter size along midline scar of previous exploratory laparotomy seen in epigastric region. It is irreducible. It becomes prominent on head raising test with negative cuff impulse. It has well-defined margins. There is no change in size of swelling from standing to lying down position. There is no visible peristalsis. Hernial orifices are free. On percussion, dull note is seen over the swelling, and on auscultation, normal peristaltic sounds are heard. My provisional diagnosis: this is a case of incisional hernia to upper part of midline incision following possible operation for perforated gallbladder, content being omentum, and it is irreducible. Thank you.
Okay. Now, can you go back to the first slide of your inspection? Okay, so this is a general examination. Okay. Now, go to
Yes.
the next slide. Okay, next one. Yeah.
Yes.
So, when you come, you said you examine the patient in a supine posture, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So in standing and lying down position, but only for the lump.
Only for the lump. So, in a
Yes.
incisional hernia, how should you examine? Should you examine in a standing posture or in a lying down posture?
Sir, both will be required in case of a hernia.
Both will be required in case of an hernia. For an incisional hernia, which is more important? In a standing posture or in a lying down posture?
Sir, lying down posture.
Lying down posture. I think it's not correct. For an incisional hernia, you should examine the patient in a standing posture, because what happens is when you are examining the patient in a lying, only for inspectory findings. Yes, you
Okay,
have to
sir.
put the patient in a lying down posture. I agree, but those are for different reasons. Why you should do. But when you come to inspection, it is better to examine the patient in a standing posture, because when you make the patient in a standing posture, you can see so many things which are apparent, right? Another thing is when you describe inspection, you should describe about symmetry of the abdomen. So all the quadrants you said seem to be moving equally with respiration, right? But if you find a swelling there, and if you say that it's from an incisional hernia, all the quadrants can equally move with respiration when they're bound with one another. But when the quadrants are separated from one another, I don't think they can move equally with respiration. So that is one thing which I also want to say. Now, you said you examined the patient on head raising test. Why did you do a head raising test? There are so many other tests. You could have done a leg raising test also. You could have done a Valsalva's maneuver also.
Sir, because the swelling is in the upper part of the incision, that is why I chose a head raising test over a leg raising
So
test.
how does head raising test help over a leg raising test?
So the upper part of the incision, the upper part of the abdomen, the muscles will become tense. So if it is a parietal wall swelling, then it will become more prominent.
If it is I could not get your answer.
Sir, if the muscles in the upper part of the abdomen, they'll become tense in this case.
Which muscle? Be very specific. See, when you answer a question, you need to be very specific to what the examiner is asking. So when you are correct in one sense, means you need to know that when you do a head raising test, what happens? The rectus abdominis, it becomes taut, because if you see the predisposition of the rectus muscle, usually it arises from the symphysis pubis and gets inserted above, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So when you do a head raising, that is the muscle which becomes taut.
Tense.
So all midline swellings which are present, they become prominent or disappear when we do a head raising test. But when we want to examine any lateral abdominal swelling, we usually do a leg raising test, because the muscles, they usually get inserted or originate from the iliac crest. So those are the muscles which become taut when we do a leg raising test. But if you want to examine in general,
yes, sir,
the most appropriate test is a Valsalva's maneuver. Okay. So when you do a Valsalva's maneuver, you get an feeling of whole of the abdomen. So it not only does does it give an idea about the swelling which is present in the midline, but at the same time, it also gives us an idea about the tone of the muscles of the whole of the abdomen, and also if there are any what do I say, other swellings, if they are present, so that can be also found out. So on inspection, I feel you should examine first in a standing posture, then you make the patient lie down, then you do a Valsalva's maneuver, so you get an idea. Okay.
Okay, sir.
And for the rest, you said the hernial sites are free. Okay, that is also accepted. Okay, I feel these are the things which you need. Another thing on inspection which you did not mention is about the nature of the scar. So what was the scar? Was it a linear scar? What was it stretched? Was it thin? Okay, so these things also need to be described when you describe an abdomen. And you said abdomen normal in shape. So with a swelling like that in the abdomen, can an abdomen be normal in shape? So these are the things which once you mention in the history, and then once you say all these things, these are the things which usually catches the eye of the examiner. Okay.
Sir, what would be a better term to use in inspection? Because I was choosing between normal, distended, and scaphoid. So
No,
it
there
was
are,
not distended.
see, that is what I said. When a shape of, see, if you see a balloon, okay, right? When a balloon is usually oval or round or whatever you say, but when there is a defect in the balloon, one area comes out, isn't it? So then
Yes,
you cannot describe in that way, means everything cannot be fit into one size.
Okay, sir.
Right? So you need to describe it in such a way so that everything is covered, but nothing, means like you have seen notes of lawyers. They write down in such a way so that it can be on this side also, that side also.
Yes, sir.
So it's a better way of describing, because if you say the abdomen is normal, a normal shape, distended shape, or a means full abdomen, that is told in respect when there is nothing in the abdomen, means when the abdomen, there are no hernias present in the abdomen. But when we speak about abdominal hernias, I think that is a bit difficult to say that the abdomen is normal in shape. I don't know what Makunda will say. Makunda, can you clarify on this? Sir, you are not audible properly. Sir, you are on mute.
Yeah. So actually the swelling is very small. She said 2 by 2 centimeter. So if you take the abdomen as a whole, the 2 by 2 centimeter will not cause much asymmetry in the abdomen. So because of small swelling. Again, another thing is you are trying to emphasize both on inspection and palpation, mobility of the swelling with respiration. You see, if you go to the history suggests that this is a swelling which was coming up on standing, walking, get reduced on lying down, but of late the swelling is irreducible.
Yes.
So you have a diagnosis of hernia in mind. We
Yes, sir.
don't have a diagnosis of some liver swelling or some other mass. So you see, all tests are not required. All points need not be mentioned everywhere. So you could
Okay,
skip
sir.
saying this point that mobility with respiration is not required here,
Okay,
because
sir. Okay,
on
sir.
the background of our history and other part, we are dealing with the case of hernia, where it
Yes,
is
sir.
unlikely that swelling mobility respiration. So this is not
Okay,
required
sir.
at all. Okay. Uh,
Yes.
Next, you are right in saying that in incisional hernia, the major part of the swelling to be described on standing. But this patient history is the swelling become irreducible.
Yes,
So
sir.
if the patient now gives a history that swelling is irreducible, so it makes no difference that patient is examined on lying down or standing posture. If the
Okay,
swelling
sir.
is reducible and getting reduced in size, then the question of lying down and standing comes in a better way. Okay.
Okay.
So you're given a diagnosis. Come to the diagnosis. Tell us the diagnosis again.
Uh, Next slide.
Diagnosis. Come to the
Next
diagnosis.
slide. Next slide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you have said that it's a case of an incisional hernia through upper part of the midline incision following possible operation for perforated gallbladder, contains being omentum, and it is irreducible. You should also mention about what is the age of the patient and whether the patient is a male or a female patient. Okay,
And,
so that
and any
completes your,
comorbidity.
yeah,
any,
yeah.
any comorbidity.
So
Yes.
that
That
makes
gives
your
you-
full diagnosis.
Okay, sir.
Okay, now,
Sir,
can
just
I,
one question.
yeah,
Sir, is it necessary to also include her problem of chronic constipation here, since it seems to be a contributory factor?
say, how do you exclude she does not have carcinoma colon? How did you exclude in this patient this constipation is not because of carcinoma colon? That is very important, because I am telling you, this
Yes,
patient
sir.
has surgery 20 years back. I am
Yes, sir.
not convinced that she has got just a hernia because the wound was infected 20 years back. Now then she comes with constipation. This is a
Yes,
very
sir.
alarming symptom in an elderly lady.
Okay,
So
sir.
that is a very important symptom that needs evaluation from history, whether she has
Yes.
got any other symptoms of bowel disorder
Yeah,
like
bleeding.
bleeding
Yes.
rectum, any mucus in stool, and your digital examination was very important to say that any luminal mass or not. So in this
Yes, sir.
case, you should emphasize that with a chronic staining factors like constipation,
Okay, sir.
because clinically you have excluded there is no evidence of any underlying malignancy in the colon.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that is important. You should mention that also.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay, we can proceed, Utpal, for
yeah. Now, you said that the hernia is irreducible, isn't it? So
Yes, sir.
of late, it has become irreducible. Now, can you tell me why it has become irreducible?
So the possibly
What
the
are means?
momentum.
In other words, what are the causes of irreducible? What are the causes you think are the causes of irreducibility in this patient?
So the contents herniated out, and subsequently they uh, could not get reduced into
Why?
the.
Why? See, it's a midline swelling, isn't it? So
Yes, sir.
there can be two ways in which we can look at it. One is the neck can be small compared to the contents.
Yes, sir.
This is one thing. The second thing is the contents that have come out has got adhered to the structures which are outside. It means just subcutaneous structures.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
so that may be the other cause. The third cause is like what happens in all epigastric hernias. There can be multiple defects. Because it is in the midline, the fibers that usually unite the crisscross. So there could be multiple defects, and might be it's a pseudo reducibility, means there could be multiple sacs, and when you are trying to reduce, it's going to the other sac.
Okay, sir.
These are the three causes. Means, see, in order of frequency I have mentioned, because you
Yes, sir.
mentioned about pain, so the size of the neck should come first.
Yes,
Second
sir.
is the adhesions that may be caused, and third is reduction into the other sac, means in case if there are multiple sacs. So
Yes, sir.
these are the three aspects why irreducibility may occur in this
Okay,
patient.
sir.
Right, so now we have our diagnosis. So is there anything else, Makunda, you want to ask? Or
we can proceed with the management.
I think now we can proceed on to, so this is your diagnosis, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Now, is there, would you like to tell us something about the differential diagnosis? Are there any differential diagnosis which you want to mention in this patient? Because it's a long history. That is why I asked about differential diagnosis. Had it been a short history and things would have been obvious as such, because these hernias, the way you described it, it does not match with, though in the initial instance, it matches with the typical hernia, but in an incisional hernia like other hernias, it's not as usual. So
Yes, sir.
would you like to tell us something about the differential diagnosis which you might think about in this patient?
Sir, sir, a lipoma.
Okay, accepted.
Sir, I cannot think of anything else which would fit in with all the significant points in the.
And why do you utter lipoma? Try to defend yourself. You see, examiner has asked for a differential diagnosis, but if you go to the history carefully, when
Yes,
the
sir.
swelling started 1 year back, the swelling was coming up on walking, strenuous activities are getting reduced.
Yes, sir.
And when the pain has come up, and then the irreducibility comes. So
Yes, sir.
hernia is a clinical diagnosis,
Yes,
and in view of the history of the reducibility, then it is unlikely that it will be a lipoma.
yes, sir.
So I think hernia being a clinical diagnosis, you can stick to this patient that there is unlikely that
Professor
Yes,
sir, can you come a little closer to the mic? You are not properly audible.
okay, okay. Yes, am I audible?
Yes,
yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
What Utpal, you think? What DD they should put in?
Yeah, means usually in an incisional hernia, we usually cannot think about this DD, but in this case, what we can think about is rightly you have said about a lipoma. Then, apart from that, one other thing which you can think about is something which may be related to, though it's not very usual, but then it could be related to some, what do I mean? Means some foreign bodies can also be there. But I feel that lipoma is more or less equal. We cannot think about anything else apart from them. Subcutaneous swellings also, they can come, means any type of cysts which can arise underneath the skin, they might come. So these are the usual means. I just asked you to know your thoughts about it, but usually incisional hernia does not have too much of a differential diagnosis.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay. So now that we have arrived at a provisional diagnosis,
yes.
how do you like to move on with this case? Means how do you like to manage this case? Means in what investigations would you like to do, and how would you proceed with it?
Sir, I would like to proceed
Okay,
to.
okay. Before one thing I would like to mention is, like before we go on to the investigations, one thing is very important. So in an incisional hernia, actually, when we examine a patient, we divide it. Means this is a small hernia, but for larger hernias, I mean to say, you divide into inspection, palpation, and then you need to see about movements, and then you need to do some measurements also. Right. So
Yes,
that
sir,
is
of the
very
defect.
important. Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Because that is very important. Uh, why it is important? Because do you know what is meant by loss of domain?
Sir, roughly I have an idea, but
Yeah,
exactly I
give
don't
us
know.
that idea. Let me see what idea you have.
Sir, if the defect is so large that it cannot be covered by using the natural musculature and the skin available in the abdominal wall, then we will have to think of other ways.
Okay, your idea is more or less correct, but that needs to be refined. See, loss of domain, domain means a space, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So our whole abdominal cavity is a space.
Yes, sir.
So now what happens is, when you reside, when you are pushed out of that space, and then you permanently reside in a space which is outside the normal space, so that is what is known as loss of domain. Now,
Okay.
if someone resides permanently outside and then you try to push it that into the normal space, then what happens? There is raised intra-abdominal pressure,
Yes, sir.
right? And so that cannot, now with the loss of domain, that cannot be done in a usual manner.
Yes, sir.
So you need to do something else apart from the normal means processes to keep that thing inside.
Yes,
So loss of domain usually encompasses three things. One is the permanent residence of the hernial contents outside its normal site. This is one. Second is when we try to reduce it inside the abdomen, that causes raised intra-abdominal pressure. And number three is we need to do some additional procedures apart from the normal ones that we do to reduce the contents or to keep the contents permanently inside the abdominal cavity. Okay. So this is why when we describe the hernia, we usually, when we inspect on, when we examination or during examination, you should divide it into inspection, palpation, movements, as I said, for large incisional hernias. What happens is there is usually paradoxical movement of the abdominal musculature. So during inspiration, what happens? The abdominal musculature, they tend to be lifted, right? And they tend to come towards the midline. But in an incisional hernia, they try to deviate, means go away from the midline, and that is why the hernia becomes more prominent. So that is the main essence when we take in any repairs. That is the main essence, to keep the musculature as far as to the midline as possible. So these are the three things. You need to measure it with a tape also. You need to measure it with a tape the gap, right? So these are all things which you need to know.
Yes.
Now, another question I would like to, can you classify this incisional hernias? You know how it is classified?
Sir,
Huh?
no, sir.
No, okay. So actually there are many ways it can be classified, but the most common way which we usually classify it is using the European Hernia System Society classification, where it divides it into midline and lateral. So in the midline we have from M1 to M6, and in the lateral we have 4 categories: subxiphoid, then lumbar, then iliac. So these and whether it is recurrent or non-recurrent, and based on size we have less than 4 centimeters, 4 to 10 centimeters, and more than 10 centimeters, right? And also we can classify it based on what I said, loss of domain, whether it is repairable or it is irreparable. And it can also be classified whether it is simple or whether it is complex. So there are so many aspects to it. Means if you go through the books, you will find all these things. So it's very in this very short period of time, it is all these are important things, because nowadays incisional hernia is such a vast chapter. So all these things are important. So you need to go through it, and I'll also upload one article on the incisional hernia. And then you can go through that article. It summarizes the whole thing, but you need to know the details of it, because then it will be easy for you to diagnose and treat a case. Okay, now coming to the investigations. What investigations would you like to do in this patient?
So the blood investigations and investigations. Yes.
First of all, why do you want to do blood investigations?
Sir, if we will be planning for a operative
So
procedure
you
for
need
this
to
patient.
plan.
Yes.
So once you need to plan, first you need to do what? You need to measure the defect,
Yes.
right? You want
Yes,
to
sir.
know about the musculature, right? You want to know whether which repair would be helpful for you. So you need to do certain investigations which will be helpful for that. Then only
Yes,
comes
sir.
the question of operability, isn't it? Because when you do an investigation and you find that means it's not that all hernias, as I said, is repairable. There are certain hernias which are irreparable. So you first need to say which hernias are repairable and which hernias are not repairable. So patient has come to you, you say it's repairable, you go on to do a repair. After 6 months, the patient comes back with a recurrence. So it's not easy nowadays to say that all hernias are repairable. So that is what you first need to investigate, means which hernias are repairable and what repair is to be done. That is based on the investigation. So now tell me, what investigation will you do to arrive at your diagnosis? Means you plan your diagnosis.
Sir, non-contrast CT abdomen will help in categorizing the condition of the musculature, the size of the hernial defect, and the contents.
So what mistake has contrast CT done?
Sir, if we can get the same information in a non-contrast, then sir, contrast.
So what additional harm does a contrast do to the patient? CT scan is already anyway doing some harm, isn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So we know
Contrast can cause renal injury or acute kidney.
No, that is a different issue.
Yes, sir.
Isn't it? So
Yes.
for that, we need not. That is a from your history. Is there
Yes,
anything suggestive of renal issues?
No, sir. No,
So
sir.
why do you want to think about that?
Okay, sir.
So you focus your attention towards the defect. So you need to do an investigation which will give you more information about the defect.
Yes, sir.
So contrast CT will give you,
CT
because
abdomen.
if you see a herniated intestine which has gone inside the musculature, so that will
Yes,
give
sir.
you an idea, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So what information from CT you can get?
Sir, the size of the defect, if
Very
there are
good.
any other defects along with it,
What is
the
it known as? If we have other defects, what is it known as? Swiss cheese defect or
Oh, Swiss cheese. Yes, Swiss cheese defect.
do you have cheese? You take cheese.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Huh? So which cheese
Yes,
is
sir.
this?
So Swiss cheese defect.
Swiss cheese are of three types, isn't it?
Um,
So you have larger rolls, you have smaller rolls. Okay, that is not an issue. So Swiss cheese defect or
Yes, yes.
battle scarred defect,
that-
right? So
Okay.
these are the two defects which are described on CT scan. What additional information from CT scan do you require?
Sir, the condition of the rectus muscle and of the lateral abdominal wall musculature, and
Okay, so second is about the condition of the muscles, right? So that
Yes,
is
sir.
second thing. Anything else you can get?
if the contents is bowel wall, then we will also be able to see viability if we are using contrast.
So is there any other defect? It means as Professor Shah said, this is a lady who can have an means carcinoma also, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So for any other pathologies, if there are any, you can get that. Now, can you tell me what is means any other conditions which can be associated with incisional hernia? Means any condition which can be congenital, which can be associated with incisional hernia, which is diagnosed by CT scan?
So umbilical hernia.
No. Nothing related to the abdominal wall, anything inside the abdomen. Means though it's not quite often found, but there can be certain defects which may lead to that condition, which may be associated with incisional hernia.
Sir, I cannot think of anything.
Means any, okay, I'll tell you the answer. Like abdominal aortic aneurysms, okay. So these are defects in the collagen matrix. So
Oh,
it may
acha,
be
yes.
associated with incisional hernia. So that can be also found in CT scan. Okay. So any other investigations in the bedside which can give the same information as the CT and which is less harmful?
Sir, ultrasound abdomen.
So what is that known as?
Ultrasound abdomen.
Yeah.
Sir,
It has got a different name when we take it in respect of an incisional hernia. Like we have FAST for trauma,
Yes,
isn't
sir.
it? So
Yes,
that
sir.
is also an abdominal ultrasound.
Hernia.
So what is
Yes,
it known as here?
Sir, I'm not aware of the name.
So it's known as DASH, DASH, means
Okay, sir.
dynamic abdominal sonography for hernias, right?
Okay, sir.
So it can give the same information as a CT scan. It can be done as a bedside procedure. It is means it does not involve any radiation.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So these are the two radiological investigations which can give you an idea about the size of the hernia and the type of repair you want to do.
Yes,
Right. Another thing which I means during movements of the abdominal wall, I said the other thing you need to know is to see if the movements of all walls of the abdomen are moving equally. Means not equally with respiration. I do not mean to say equally with respiration. Means whether the innervation of the muscles are proper or not.
Okay, sir.
Okay, because when you do a repair, if the innervation is not proper, then what will happen? You do a repair that's likely to fail, or you can have Malgagne's type of bulges here and there. Right, so the innervation needs to be good.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so you do these two investigations. So after you do these two investigations, then you decide, okay, now it say that it's operable. I'm not coming about inoperability because that is another complex issue. So that requires too much of other investigations that need to be done. So suppose now the hernia is operable. Now what will you do?
Before that, few questions. When you Shobana, when you give the
Yes, sir.
diagnosis, in
Yes,
the
sir.
diagnosis you should have this EHS classification being mentioned.
Okay, sir.
As per
Okay, sir.
EHS classification, this is M2 and the gap
Yes, sir.
W. Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
that should be there. Second is when doctor they has asked you what investigation will do,
Yes, sir.
you always keep in mind in a surgical patient,
Yes, sir.
ultrasound is an extension of clinical examination.
Okay,
So
sir.
don't jump to CT scan. The
Yes, sir.
ultrasound is always an adjunct to clinical examination. And in
Okay,
a
sir.
patient of incisional hernia, you said patient has got a gallbladder perforation, you're not sure about it.
Yes, sir.
So in that case, you do ultrasound, number one, to assess the hernial defect
Yes, sir.
and the abdominal wall, and also to exclude other intra-abdominal pathology.
Sir, একটু মাইকে বলবেন স্যার
So what I'm saying is, you start with a invasion called ultrasonography, not CT straight away, because
sir.
ultrasound is an extension of clinical examination,
Yes, sir.
and ultrasound can exclude other intra-abdominal pathology which CT may even miss, because you're
Yes,
not
sir.
sure all the time you're seeing query gallbladder perforation. So you can
Yes, sir.
make out whether cholecystomy has been done or not. So ultrasound should be the first initiation to ultra examination, and then come to CT. Is there
Yes.
any objective calculation to say the patient has got loss of domain? From the CT scan, can you have an objective assessment to say that this patient has got loss of domain? This patient does not have. What is the calculation? You know about that?
Sir, I think it is more than 20% of
What?
volume.
How do you calculate? Where do you place what?
Sir is asking about the calculation. Means
No, sir, I do not know the calculation.
This calculation is hernials. You can measure the hernial sac volume in CT scan.
Yes, sir.
You can measure the cavity volume in CT scan.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So calculation is hernial sac volume divided
Yes.
by cavity volume into 100.
Okay, sir.
So if it is more than 25%, that means you have loss of domain.
actually there are two ways of calculating. This is the easier one. This is known as Shabag's, I think, Shabag's method. This is known as, there is another method which is known as Tanaka's method. So that is a bit complex. These are complex issues, but I feel that when you speak about loss of domain, you should know this, the easier one, what Professor Shah has said. So means total abdominal volume by means the abdominal volume that is detected by CT and the hernial sac volume into 100. So
Sir, in total abdominal volume, we will include the part which is included in the hernial cavity volume as well, or that
no,
will
no,
be
no, no,
excluded?
no, no, no. Total abdominal volume is 100%, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then you, when you see the CT, you see the abdominal volume excluding the part which is in the hernial sac.
Okay, sir.
That needs to be excluded.
Shobana, can you define what do you mean by a complex ventral hernia?
Sir, I cannot hear you, sir.
Sir, you are not audible. Sir.
Can you define the criteria to define a complex incisional or ventral hernia? Am I not audible?
Yeah,
No.
no, sir, you're audible.
Can you define the criteria to say this is a complex hernia? What are the criteria?
No, sir, I do not.
I've known at least a few things. One is, you said one is large hernias when there is
Yes,
loss
sir.
of domain, number one. When it's a recurrent hernia, that is a complex hernia. When you have multiple defects in the hernial content, the multiple defects, you have a hernia which is recurrent,
Yes.
repaired earlier, and then recurred, is a complex hernia. You have a hernia which was operated earlier and there is a persisting infection in the presenting hernia.
Okay,
You have a hernia associated with intracutaneous fistula.
okay.
You have a gap, horizontal gap of more than 8 or 10 centimeter. We call that as a complex hernia. So they are the criteria to define a complex hernia, because complex hernia will be managed differently than a hernia like 2 by 2 centimeter. Okay.
Yes,
So I think
Complex
we can go to
hernias,
the,
actually, they have so many criteria. Sir has said most of them.
Yes.
But once I upload that article, you go through that. So that
Yes.
gives the criteria. They all have points associated with it. So when you add up to those points, that tells you roughly and gives you an idea about whether it is complex or something.
Okay, sir.
Okay, now, so now you have arrived at your diagnosis. You feel that there is a defect, okay, by 2 centimeters by 2 centimeters. Now you have seen, you have done a CT scan. There are no other defects, okay. And
Yes.
now what will you do?
Sir, proceed with counsel the
What is your
patient.
plan now? What is your, let us hear about your plan.
Sir, open repair with mesh placement for any open hernioplasty for incisional.
Okay, so you will do an open hernioplasty with a mesh.
Patient
Yes.
does not want open. Patient does not want a open surgery. Will you convince her to get the open surgery? If so, why?
Um,
You are in a good center where people are not doing open surgery, I feel.
yes, sir.
Then why do you start with open surgery here with a gap of 2 centimeter? What is the
Sir, there
point
may be,
in this
sir,
patient? You can justify still. That's why I'm asking you.
sir, there may be the scar may be thinned out, and it may also require reinforcement. And because there is a previous incisional incision at the
Whereas always will
same
be
site.
incision hernia only. People are doing
Sir?
lab repair. What is the point in this patient to at least defend yourself that yes, open should be better in this patient?
So there may be multiple defects which may require.
You have a CT scan done.
Yes, sir.
The hernia is irreducible. You see,
Yes, sir.
sometimes
It may-
irreducible hernia is difficult to be managed in laparoscopic manner. But if you are doing a transabdominal repair, you can do a laparoscopy. So here you should be flexible. You should not be very rigid. I'll do open only. But
Yes.
this is a small hernia which is not
Yes.
bulging much. And what if you do laparoscopic? What is the choice?
Sir,
If you are doing laparoscopic surgery in this patient, what is the choice? What are you going to do?
And sir is trying to ask where you said you will repair with a mesh, isn't it?
yes, sir. Yes.
So
sir,
where will you
yes, sir.
put in the mesh?
Sir,
What is
it
the
can
operation
be-
called as laparoscopically? You heard of IPOM and IPOM plus?
Yes, sir. Yes.
What
sir.
is IPOM plus
Sir, intra-abdominal onlay mesh repair.
and
with-
IPOM plus?
Sir, plus
With-
I do not know.
Plus is when if you do a simple IPOM,
Yes.
you do not close the gap. You just place the mesh, bridging the gap.
Yes.
In IPOM plus, now people are doing more and more IPOM plus, particularly the hernia is about 2 centimeter dimension. So you close the gap by
And then
endosuturing.
Okay.
And
Why
then
why do you need to close the gap?
Sir, it is additional reinforcement over the below the mesh.
Yeah. So why do you require that? Means, see, I told you before, and everything based on hernia repair in the abdomen is based on physics, right? So
Yes,
just
sir.
suppose you take a pressure cooker, right?
Yes, sir.
So you have one vent through which the steam comes out.
Yes, sir.
So which is easier? If you put a lid above, the lid can be blown off, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So if you place it below, then
Yes, sir.
it gives an additional strength, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
And
Yes,
in between, if you place in between the layers, that gives more strength.
yes.
So preperitoneal repair means
Okay.
just beneath the muscle and just above the peritoneum. That is the best possible.
Best. Okay. sir.
Now IPOM does not give that strength because there's a rent is present. So in addition, if you close the rent, then that means what do I say? That defect which is present in IPOM is taken care of. So that is why IPOM is in a way akin to placing the mesh in the preperitoneal area
Okay.
than onlay or means anatomical repair. So it's better in a sense.
Okay.
So that is what is the idea behind doing this.
in 2 centimeter gap, do you think anatomical repair can be an option?
Yes, sir. It
Yes.
can be approximate.
Yes.
It can be approximated.
What do you mean by anatomical repair? If you are doing
Sir,
anatomical
we-
repair in this patient, what do you mean by that?
Sir, we are restoring the earlier the linea alba was present in the center. We are trying to restore it to the normal anatomy as it is present in this.
Yes.
How do you restore the linea alba? Just by stitching up the two ends. Does it restore the linea alba?
Sir, this I do not know.
Huh?
Sir, I do not know.
So if you need to restore the linea alba, that is also means you need to do a repair which is known as shoelace repair. Okay. So you need to reconstruct the linea alba, and then only you can do repair. But pure anatomical repair, if you do in the upper abdomen, means the pressure is more, right?
Yes, sir.
So there is every chance of failure. Huh?
Okay.
So that is why just an anatomical repair won't suffice. So if you want to do a tissue repair, you need to do a shoelace repair
Shoelace.
by recreating the neolinea alba. Okay,
So,
otherwise means
Yes, sir.
laparoscopic surgeons are fond of doing a newer procedure when they have a very small hernial defect.
Okay,
What
sir.
is that? If the hernia is reducible and the defect is very small, there is an operation called SCOLA. Have you heard of it?
Sir,
SCOLA.
I have heard of it, but I do not know anything about it.
It's been shown in different workshops. SCOLA is known as subcutaneous onlay mesh repair for hernia, laparoscopy.
Okay.
Okay, so what you do is you go to the subcutaneous plane,
Yes, sir.
create space by using carbon dioxide, and then
Yes.
you can go around this defect,
Yes.
reduce the hernial defect, and just
Yes.
place a large mesh. So it's a
Okay.
overkill. But what I feel is overkill for a very small hernia. They did a large area of dissection and put a large mesh covering a large area of the abdomen. It's not a very thing. Okay, you are doing an open mesh repair. How are you going to do that? How are you going to place a mesh if you are doing an open hernia repair in this?
So we can place an
You tell me. You
no.
can know what we are doing. Tell us.
Sir, first open the abdomen along the previous incision over the hernial, over the site of the hernia, and then dissection to isolate the sac, and then opening the sac and then examining the contents. If it is bowel, then checking viability, or if it is omentum, then reducing it into the abdominal cavity, and then excision of sac, and then closure of the defect, and then placement of a mesh above the rectal sheath, only mesh herniaplasty.
Is it recommended nowadays onlay mesh? What is the
No,
problem with onlay mesh? It's just beneath the skin, isn't it?
Yes,
That
sir.
is one option. But what may be the better option? What can be a better option for mesh placement in a patient like this?
So retrorectal space.
So how do you create that space? How will you create a space? You said retrorectal space. What is that?
So behind the rectus posterior.
How do you reach that area in a patient like this? You
Yes,
have
sir.
this is the hernial sac, and how do you place the mesh? You called as retrorectus mesh placement. How do you do that?
So we'll have to do dissection between the posterior rectal sheath and the rectus muscle on both sides.
How do you reach there? You have the hernial sac,
Yes, sir.
and you have opened the hernial sac, reduce the content.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Now what you do to find these two separate layers? Where do you make an incision? Where?
So
The
we
linear alba is pushed outward.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So you have
Yes,
two
sir.
margins on either side.
Yes, sir.
So make an incision 1 centimeter from the margin of the defect.
Okay, sir.
And now try to separate the two layers,
Yes.
the anterectal sheath and the posterior rectus sheath. And you dissect the posterior rectus sheath, keeping the muscle anteriorly. That is how you reach. And how far will be your dissection?
Sir, mic check.
How far will be dissection? Above, below, on either side.
So 5
Once you have made
centimeters.
the incision, how far you will go and place the mesh? What is the principle?
So 5 centimeters. Hello.
5 centimeters on all sides.
Yes, sir. 5 centimeters
Yeah.
on.
So 5 centimeters on all sides.
So that is the way. So it is better to place a mesh in the retrorectus space rather than
Yes.
in the
In the
subcutaneous
only.
space.
Yes.
Because the problem we have not answered. The problem of subcutaneous mesh placement is if there is flap necrosis,
Yes, sir.
this mesh get exposed to the outside. Okay,
Yes.
but most of the time you may have some skin related problem in the hernial surgery. Okay, so we need to wind up.
Yes,
What
sir.
is called? Just ask
Ah.
last few questions. Dr.
Okay,
Maiti, come in.
sir. Means she has answered nicely also. So I don't have any further questions now.
Okay, Dr. Maiti, Dr. Acharji, any comments?
Excellent discussion. Everything has been covered. I hope the students would be immensely benefited with the discussion. And truly speaking, I have also learned from this discussion something new. Okay, thank you.
Dr.
And
Acharji,
regarding the MES, Dr. Professor Saha, I want to impress on the students that when you are using a MES, that is doing the MES plastic, always try to keep the plane, try to keep the MES within the tissue, and that should be at the deeper plane. Deeper is the placement of the MES, less is the complication with the MES.
আমি 10টার মধ্যে যাচ্ছি।
Although this is a small hernia, no discussion is actually complete without some discussion about abdominal wall repair in cases of incisional hernia. But that is a huge chapter. Professor Utpal
We
Dey
have
has
not gone to
already
that
mentioned
because
it.
she presented
Oh,
a
it's
small
okay.
hernia.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you would have gone to abdominal reconstruction. We'll
Yeah,
keep
yeah.
it for another hernia.
Another
We'll have
session, maybe.
a large
Yeah.
hernia, giant hernia, and then discuss
Yeah,
that.
Utpal has mentioned that is a huge chapter. Anyway.
Now, in brief,
Thank you.
what I would like to say is like abdominal means component separation. Dr. Saha has already said. It's like when you board a lift, you find there are two doors, isn't it? So one slides over the other. So the basic concept is that, but then it's a very simple way of explaining, but things are a bit something like that with a few other modifications. So that is a separate issue.
Professor Dey,
Yes.
as the gap here is 2 centimeter, is there any scope, and the muscle power is good, is there any scope to do the anatomical repair without a mess? That should be also impressed to the
Yes,
Yes,
student
sir.
for
We
participation.
actually we had discussed about this.
Yes.
It's
Still in the
there,
book. Yes.
We have
It's in
discussed
the
about
book, but nowadays the more preferred repair is tensionless repair. But 2 centimeter defect, yes, a anatomical repair is acceptable. Nobody will say no.
Only a simple dissection, mobilization, and suturing with a non-absorbable trolley suture.
Yeah.
2-0, 1-0, or 1-0 or
But
1.
no overlapping. No overlapping, like me.
No overlapping. That will increase the tension.
Yeah. Okay.
Utpal, last question, last point.
Yes.
Utpal has mentioned that he's going to upload an article on management of incisional hernia. Where in the Facebook or in this?
No. I'll upload in this group.
Okay.
Okay.
Evening time I'll upload because
Okay.
I have to go
Thank
to
you,
the
Utpal.
hospital. So evening time.
I
I'll
think
upload.
many in the audience, both students and teachers, are waiting for that.
Okay. Thank you. I'll upload it.
And one comment I also make to the students,
Yeah.
that though the defect is in the midline, and remember sometimes the swelling may be on the lateral aspect, but the main defect is in the midline, and because of the adhesion of the skin to the underlying scar, the content or the sac may shift to the left. So sometimes seeing a swelling more laterally without being a midline, the idea should also be kept in mind that incisional hernia from a midline defect may not be in the midline, that may be laterally placed.
Yes, sir.
Okay, students, thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Shah. Shukumarda, thank you. Anandita,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.